Chapter 1. The First Veils. Waking in the Body, Veils 1 to 3. The veils are the gates through which the soul passes as it awakens to itself. Unlike the rays, which describe principles and movements, each veil marks a threshold of experience. Once crossed, the world can never be seen quite the same way again. The first band of veils, 1 through 3, belong to what we might call the incarnational threshold. They do not ask the soul to be holy in any advanced sense. They ask it to be honest about existing, in a body, with desire, and under fear. Veil 1, waking in the body. Veil 2, first desire. Veil 3, fear and flight together. These three form a small antechamber before any higher work can truly begin. No matter how exalted the doctrine, if these veils are refused, the path remains fantasy. Veil 1, waking in the body. The soul's first initiation is brutally simple. You are here, in flesh. Most of us spend years half asleep to this fact. We live in stories, in screens, and mental weather, and treat the body like either a nuisance or a tool. Veil 1 is the point at which the soul can no longer ignore the raw, immediate reality of embodiment. Outer form, the gate of flesh. On the outer surface, Veil 1 manifests as a sharp awareness of pain or limitation, a confrontation with fatigue, illness, sexuality, aging, or a sudden sense of being trapped in a particular body and life. The initiate begins to realize, I am not floating above this. My path runs through this skin, not around it. Crossing Veil 1 does not mean loving the body in a sentimental way. It means owning embodiment, acknowledging that the spiritual work is anchored in breath, heartbeat, hunger, and mortality. Inner form. The body is door, not prison. In its inner aspect, Veil 1 corrects two opposite errors: the belief that the body is a prison to be escaped, and the belief that the body is the whole truth of the self. The veil whispers both, you are not only this, and you are not other than this. The soul learns to see the body as door, a chosen entry point into the world, not as a cosmic punishment. At this threshold, the deeper intention of incarnation becomes faintly perceptible. Some part of the soul has consented to work through matter, to let the rays refract through flesh. Initiatory practice. A simple crossing rite for Veil 1 can be as modest as conscious acknowledgement. Sit or stand and scan the body from feet to crown. Name sensations without judgment: warm, tight, ache, pleasure, numb. Then quietly affirm, open quote, this is my gate, not my cage. The work of the one in me begins here. Close quote. This is enough. No grand technique is required. The key is consent to be embodied as the actual ground of further initiation. Veil 2, first desire. Once the body is acknowledged, something stirs within it. Veil 2 is the awakening of desire, the first deep unedited I want. Outer form, the spark of wanting. On the outer level, this veil appears as hunger for food, touch, comfort, pleasure, longing for recognition, belonging, relief, an ache that is often misread as mere greed or weakness. The initiate is confronted with the fact that they are not a neutral observer, they are moved. Something in them reaches, leans, yearns. Spiritual systems often deal with this crudely, either suppressing desire or sanctifying it wholesale. Veil 2 insists on a more exact path. Inner form. Desire as seed, not master. The inner lesson of this veil is subtle. Desire is not the enemy. Without it, nothing would ever move toward the good. But desire is not the master either. Unexamined, it reduces the soul to appetite. At Veil 2, the soul begins to recognize desire as seed, a small, intense center that implies a larger fire behind it. Every concrete I want for pleasure, admiration, escape points in distorted form toward a higher longing, to be seen truly, to be safe in love, to participate in real beauty and goodness. The veil does not demand that desire be abolished. It demands that desire be seen through. Initiatory practice. A practical way to cross Veil 2 is honest naming. 1. Write one sentence, open quote, right now what I most want is, and complete it without censoring yourself. Close quote. 2. Then ask, open quote, if this were a symbol of a deeper longing, what might it be? Close quote. You are not required to find the perfect answer. The initiation lies in treating desire as sign rather than as final object. This loosens its grip and orients it toward the rays that can actually fulfill it. Veil 3, fear and flight. If Veil 2 shows how the soul advances toward what it loves, Veil 3 reveals how it runs from what it fears. Desire and fear are partners. Early initiation must address both. Outer form, the shudder at the threshold. On the surface, Veil 3 appears as social anxiety, fear of failure, exposure, rejection, punishment, bodily fear of harm, illness, death. To hit this veil is to notice that many choices are simply avoidances. The soul sees that much of its life has been organized around not being hurt, rather than around the good. Fear itself is not a fault, it is a primitive guardian, but as a ruler, it becomes a tyrant. Inner form, fear as signal, not sovereign. The inner aspect of Veil 3 is the replacing of fear within the order of the soul. Fear is recognized as a signal. Something here matters, pay attention. It is no longer worshipped as a sovereign that must always be obeyed. This veil doesn't demand recklessness. It asks the initiate to stand in the shaking and ask, is my fear telling me about real danger, or simply protecting an image, a comfort, an old pattern? Sometimes fear is accurate and must be respected. This, too, is wisdom. But even then, the soul can respond from a higher center rather than merely reacting. Initiatory practice. A simple ordeal for Veil 3 is the small brave act. 1. Name one specific fear related to your path or your relationships. I am afraid that if I say X, Y will happen. 2. Find one modest action that honors the good while touching that fear. A truthful conversation, a boundary set, a step taken despite anxiety. 3. Do that action consciously, admitting, I am afraid, and I choose this anyway. This seals the crossing. The soul learns it can move with fear present, rather than waiting for fear to vanish completely. The first chamber. What changes after Veils 1 to 3? Once Veils 1 to 3 are genuinely engaged, the initiate is no longer living mainly, above the body, ashamed of desire, or entirely governed by fear. Instead, the body is accepted as the lawful starting point. Desire is seen as seed of a higher eros. Fear has been demoted from God to messenger. From this point onward, the ladder of virtues and the higher veils can rest on something solid. The soul is awake enough to begin. In later chapters, Veils 4 to 12 will extend this early work, reshaping the masks of family and tribe, exposing the shadow and the law of return, loosening the idol of the small I, and walking into the door of responsibility. But all of that depends on a fact that Veils 1 to 3 engrave in the soul. You are here, in this body, with these wants and these fears. The One has chosen to meet you exactly there. Chapter 2, Masks and Habits, Veils 4 to 6. After the first shock of embodiment, desire, and fear, the soul discovers that it has not arrived in a neutral space. It has entered a story already in progress. Others have named the world before us. A family with its myths and injuries, a tribe with its heroes and enemies, a culture with its ruts and routines. Veils 4 to 6 define this second chamber. Veil 4, Mask of the Family. Veil 5, Mirror of the Tribe. Veil 6, Chain of Habit. To work with these veils is to realize that much of what you call myself is inherited costume and momentum. The aim is not to despise these layers, but to see them clearly enough that the deeper soul can begin to choose. Veil 4, Mask of the Family. Every soul is born into a house of mirrors. Before we can speak, we are looked at, handled, praised, scolded. Our first sense of who I am is built from reflections in the eyes of those who raised us, parents, carers, siblings, the early circle of belonging and threat. Veil 4 names this first mask. Outer form, the first script. On the outer level, Veil 4 shows as recurring statements about what we're like in your family. We're tough. We don't talk about feelings. We're better than them. Loyalties and resentments that run so deep they feel like facts of nature. Roles you seem to be assigned very early. The responsible one, the difficult one, the invisible one, the star. The initiate begins to realize this script is not the same thing as my soul. Inner form. Honoring without imprisonment. The inner work of this veil is delicate. The family mask cannot simply be ripped away without tearing the face beneath. At the same time, to cling to it as absolute is to stay frozen. Veil 4 asks for a double movement. Gratitude for whatever genuine good was passed down. Protection, imagination, survival skills, faith, humor, endurance. Discernment about what is no longer true or never was. Inherited shame, prejudice, secrecy, patterns of harm. The soul learns to say, in effect, open quote, thank you for what helped me live. I release what keeps me small. Close quote. This is not betrayal of the family. It is the beginning of becoming a conscious heir rather than a passive echo. Initiatory practice. A simple rite for Veil 4 is the family script inventory. Write down the key messages absorbed in childhood about yourself, others, money, God or meaning, outsiders. Mark each as gift, truly life-giving, wound, hurting you or others, or mixed. Then in quiet, speak a sentence over each category. For gifts, open quote, I keep this with thanks, close quote. For wounds, open quote, I name this as wound and set it down, close quote. For mixed, open quote, I keep the good, I release the harm, close quote. The crossing of Veil 4 is not a single dramatic act, but a gradual shift from unquestioned inheritance to chosen legacy. Veil 5, mirror of the tribe. Beyond the narrow circle of family lies a larger we, the tribe. This can be a nation, ethnicity, religion, class, a subculture, movement, online community, any group that says we are this and they are that. Veil 5 is where the soul sees how profoundly these collective mirrors shape its sense of self. Outer form, the comfort and prison of we. Outwardly, this veil appears as strong identification with group symbols, flags, slogans, icons, jargon, and jokes, reflexive judgments about us versus them, a warm feeling of belonging that can quickly turn to hostility when threatened. The initiate notices that many opinions, tastes, and reactions are not personal discoveries, but tribal reflexes. Inner form, mirror. Not face. The inner lesson of Veil 5 is that the tribe's reflection is not the same as identity. The group can be a source of support, language, shared practice, a training ground for virtue and service, but it is not the final measure of a soul's worth. No tribe is large enough to contain the golden circle. The veil teaches, you may wear these colors, but they are not your skin. The soul must learn to value its belonging while also knowing that every such belonging is provisional, partial, and mortal. Initiatory practice. A useful practice here is conscious membership. List the tribes you belong to or strongly identify with, religious, political, artistic, social. For each rite, one genuine gift it has given you and one blind spot or harm it tends to generate. Then sit with this sentence. My tribe is one mirror among many. It can help me see, but it does not show me everything. Crossing Veil 5 means you can stand within a group without being swallowed by it. You can love your people and yet know that every human is, at root, kin under the one. Veil 6, chain of habit. Once the soul has glimpsed the constructed nature of family and tribe, another layer becomes visible, habit. Habits are the grooves in which life runs. Long before we decide who we want to be, our bodies and minds have been trained into certain tracks. Outer form, life on rails. On the surface, Veil 6 appears as daily routines that seem unquestionable, how you wake, eat, work, distract, relate. Fixed reactions in certain situations, anger, withdrawal, joking, caretaking, addictions and compulsions that repeat themselves despite your decisions to stop. The initiate begins to see that a shocking amount of behavior is automatic, and that merely meaning well changes little while the tracks remain the same. Inner form, pattern, not fate. The inner revelation of Veil 6 is that habit is powerful, but not absolute. Habits are like canals. They guide energy, saving effort when they serve the good, but they flood and drown when they do not. This veil insists on two acknowledgments. I am more governed by patterns than I realized. Patterns can be altered, slowly and consciously. The chains are real, but they are made of practice, not metaphysical iron. Initiatory practice. A simple crossing ritual for Veil 6 could be called one broken link. Identify one habitual behavior that feels misaligned with the path you intend. A way you speak when stressed, a reflex of avoidance, a small addiction or numbing pattern. 2. For a set period, a day, 3 days, a week, commit to changing that one behavior in one clear way. Pause before speaking in that tone. Stay present for 1 extra minute instead of escaping. Replace the habit with a small act of awareness, a breath, a gesture, a prayer. 3. When you inevitably slip, do not collapse into shame. Simply notice and begin again. The point is not perfection. It is to prove to the soul that the chain is not unbreakable. One altered link demonstrates that the pattern can be recut. The second chamber, from inherited self to chosen path. After Veils 4 to 6, the initiate has passed through a second crucial chamber. The family mask has been honored and questioned. The tribal mirror has been recognized as partial. The chain of habit has been seen and felt as modifiable. The self is no longer experienced as a fixed object handed down from outside. This is just who I am. This is just how it is. Instead, the soul begins to sense itself as co-creator of its own form. Only now is it ready for the next layer of initiation in which pleasure, shadow, and the law of return become conscious teachers rather than blind forces. Those are the lessons of the next veils. In the following chapter, Veils 7 to 9 will open. The Garden of Pleasures, the first shadow, and the law of return. 3 gates through which the soul learns that nothing it touches is spiritually neutral, and nothing it has done is beyond being gathered back into the circle. Chapter 3 we go. Pleasure, shadow, and return, Veils 7 to 9. By the time the soul reaches Veil 7, it has accepted the reality of the body, Veil 1, acknowledged desire and fear, Veils 2 to 3, begun to see its inherited masks, Veils 4 to 5, and recognize that habit is powerful but not fate, Veil 6. The next layer brings the soul into conscious contact with 3 forces that were always shaping it. Pleasure, what it runs toward; shadow, what it hides from itself; return, how actions echo back. These are Veils 7 to 9. Veil 7, Garden of Pleasures; Veil 8, First Shadow; Veil 9, Law of Return. The work here is not to become above these forces, but to stop being naive about them. Pleasure is not simple good. Shadow is not simple evil. Return is not simple fate. Each is part of the circle. Veil 7, Garden of Pleasures. The world is not only hard ground and duty, it is also sweetness. Pleasure arrives early: the taste of food, the softness of skin, the warmth of sun, music, color, story, intimacy. Veil 7 is the point at which the initiate stops pretending that pleasure is either irrelevant or automatically corrupt. Instead, it is faced as spiritual material. Outer form, the pull of delight. On the outer surface, this veil appears as strong pulls towards sensual, aesthetic, emotional enjoyment, the discovery that pleasure can soothe real pain, and the equally real discovery that pleasure can be used to avoid truth. The initiate begins to see patterns, times when joy has opened the heart and deepened gratitude, times when the same joys have become addictive, numbing, or costly to others. Veil 7 asks, what do you do with sweetness? Inner form, gift, not God. The inner lesson is simple and hard. Pleasure is a gift, not a god. It is not the summit of joy, but a signpost toward the giver of joy. To make pleasure God is to demand that it sustain meaning all by itself. It cannot bear that weight and becomes poison. To treat pleasure as enemy is to reject a path by which the one often softens and reaches the heart. The veil invites a stance in which the soul can say, open quote, I receive this sweetness as given, and I refuse to trample others to keep it. I will not use it to forget who I am. Close quote. Initiatory practice. A simple rite for Veil 7 is the grateful, limited enjoyment. Choose one form of pleasure: food, music, bath, art, intimacy, and take it with full attention, genuine gratitude, and no self-accusation. Then deliberately stop before you feel you must. In that stopping, quietly offer the experience back. Thank you for this taste of joy. Let it turn me toward you. This crossing teaches the soul that pleasure is something it can receive, not something it must either worship or fear. Veil 8, First Shadow. Where there is light, there is shadow. After Veil 7 has made pleasure conscious, Veil 8 asks the soul to look honestly at the parts of itself it would rather not see. Outer form, glimpse and flinch. On the outside, Veil 8 often appears in brief, unsettling flashes: envy of a friend's good fortune, enjoyment of someone else's failure, a lie told almost without thinking, a moment of cruelty, contempt, or lust that surprises you. The usual response is to flinch and push it away. That's not really me. Or to collapse into condemnation. I must be rotten at the core. Veil 8 stands precisely at this point of discomfort. Inner form. Shadow as teacher, not verdict. The inner truth of Veil 8 is that shadow is real, but not total. Those dark impulses are parts of the psyche that learn to defend, learn to grasp, learn to protect some vulnerability in distorted ways. They are not the soul's essence, but neither are they trivial. To deny them is to remain fragmented, to identify with them is to despair. The veil offers a third way. See what is in you without panic. Let your shadow speak its fear. Then decide who will lead. The shadow becomes a teacher. It can show where the soul still feels unsafe, unseen, unloved. Initiatory practice. A practical crossing of Veil 8 is shadow naming. In a private, safe space, journal or contemplation, write, "The part of me I least want anyone to see is..." Complete the sentence honestly. Then add, "This part is trying badly to protect me from." See what arises. You're not excusing harm, you're understanding it. The initiation lies in not looking away. Over time, this allows shadow energy to be retasked, its strength placed in service of the rays rather than working underground. Veil 9, Law of Return. After the soul has faced its pleasures and glimpsed its shadow, the next revelation is that nothing is without consequence. Veil 9 is the recognition of a law woven into the fabric of existence. What you send out returns. This is not presented as a crude vending machine, do good, get good, but as a deep structural truth about participation in the circle. Outer form, echoes of action. Outwardly, Veil 9 appears as repeated life patterns, similar relationships that end the same way, the same conflict in different settings, familiar forms of success or failure, situations where your past choices come back in altered form. The initiate begins to see, I am not just being acted upon, I am living in the echo of what I've thrown. This can be frightening at first, especially when confronting harm done. It can also be profoundly empowering. Inner form. Echo as opportunity. The inner work of Veil 9 is to understand return as invitation, not damnation. If old patterns, wounds, or injustices recur, each recurrence is a new chance to meet them differently. If good seeds bear fruit, that fruit is a chance to share, not to hoard or boast. The Veil teaches that the circle is morally alive. Energy given in fear, cruelty, or indifference tends to propagate similar conditions. Energy given in courage, mercy, and truth tends to create new space for those same qualities. You are not condemned by the past, but you are in dialogue with it. Initiatory practice. A way to cross Veil 9 is through traceback and re-aiming. 1. Identify one recurring pattern in your life that troubles you. A type of conflict, a relational dynamic, a repeated form of inner sabotage. 2. Ask in writing or thought, which of my own choices, beliefs, or habits seem to feed this? You do not have to take blame for everything, only for your side of the weave. 3. Then formulate one small concrete change in how you respond next time that pattern appears. This is not magical thinking. It is a recognition that you are moving within a network of causes, and that by changing your contribution, you change the story. Crossing Veil 9 means shifting from "why does this always happen to me?" to "how am I participating in this, and how can I participate differently?" The third chamber, the moral weather of the soul. After Veils 7 to 9, the initiate lives in a different moral climate. Pleasure is seen as gift that must be handled, not an unexamined right or constant suspicion. Shadow has been acknowledged as real and educative, not hidden or totalizing. The law of return is felt as living context, not superstition or blind fate. The soul begins to understand that every act, every omission, every choice participates in the rays and the circle. Nothing is spiritually neutral. Even in the most ordinary day, the initiate is training the soul to resonate with certain patterns, toward union or away from it. The next veils, 10 to 12, will deepen this responsibility further, showing how language shapes reality, how the idol of the small self is built, and how the door of responsibility marks the end of childhood for the soul. Those form the subject of the next chapter. Chapter 4. Names, Self, and Responsibility, Veils 10 to 12. By the time the soul reaches Veil 10, it has seen that it is truly embodied, 1 to 3, that it inherited scripts and patterns, 4 to 6, that it moves through pleasure, shadow, and return, 7 to 9. The next step is more subtle and dangerous. The soul begins to notice how it talks itself into a world. Language, identity, and responsibility now come into focus. These 3 veils complete the first major ring of the inner life. Veil 10, House of Names, Veil 11, Idol of the Self, Veil 12, Door of Responsibility. Crossing these gates, the initiate moves from being mainly a product of conditions to becoming a conscious shaper of their reality and their path. House of Names. We do not meet the world directly. We meet it through names. Before we know what anything is, we are told what to call it. True, false, safe, unsafe, sacred, secular, us, them, success, failure, saved, lost. Veil 10 illuminates the structure in which our perceptions are held, the invisible house built of words. Outer form, the net of language. On the surface, this veil shows itself when the initiate begins to notice how quickly they label experiences: good, bad, normal, crazy, sin, blessing. How often these labels were inherited from family, tribe, or culture. How language can either open or close possibilities. The house of names is like a net thrown over the sea. It catches some things and misses others. Within that net, it can feel as though the map is the territory. Veil 10 is the first awareness. The words I use are not neutral. They create the world I think I see. Inner form. Names as tools, not thrones. The inner lesson is not to discard language, but to dethrone it. Names are vital. They let us communicate, remember, reflect. They help us trace patterns and discern truth. But they are still signs, not substances. Even the holiest names, God, soul, sin, grace, one, are fingers pointing, not the moon itself. The veil whispers, open quote, use these words. Do not mistake them for the thing itself. Let every name be provisional, especially the ones you most cherish. Close quote. This does not relativize truth. It humbles the mind before the mystery words can only approximate. Initiatory practice. A simple rite for Veil 10 is the name loosening. 1. Choose one powerful word in your spiritual vocabulary, something like God, sin, grace, enemy, failure. 2. Write down what it has meant to you, where that meaning seems to have come from: family, church, books, culture. 3. Then ask, what else might this word point to if I let it breathe a little wider? You do not need a full answer. The practice is to remember that language is a house you live in, and that doors and windows can be opened. Crossing Veil 10, the soul begins to speak with more reverence, more care, and more awareness that the One is always beyond the best names we give. Veil 11, Idol of the Self. Where Veil 10 reveals the house of words, Veil 11 reveals the statue built inside that house, the I the soul believes itself to be. This self is not the deep, living soul. It is a constructed image made of memories, roles, adjectives, stories about what we always or never do. It's the character we play in our own narrative. Outer form, the solid me. On the outer level, Veil 11 appears as statements like, I'm just the kind of person who, I've always been this way. People like me don't. It shows up in the fierce defense of certain identities: the strong one, the victim, the helper, the rebel, the quiet one, the rational one, the mystic. When this veil stirs, the initiate catches glimpses of behavior that don't quite fit the story and feels disturbed. If I'm not this, then who am I? Inner form, mask, not essence. The inner work of Veil 11 is to recognize the small I as idol, not essence. The self-image is not evil in itself. We need some sense of continuity and character to navigate the world. But when the image becomes an absolute, growth stops. The soul defends its statue even against the one. The veil says, open quote, this story is not the soul. It is a mask the soul has worn. You may honor it, but you may not worship it. Close quote. This does not erase personality. It returns it to fluidity. The true self is deeper, more flexible, more aligned with the rays and veils than any frozen description. Initiatory practice. A crossing exercise for Veil 11 is story expansion. 1. Write the sentence, open quote, I am the kind of person who, and complete it several times with your strongest self-beliefs, close quote. 2. Then add a second sentence for each one, open quote, but sometimes I am also, and describe behaviors or moments that don't fit the script, close quote. This reveals the cracks in the idol. To seal the initiation, the soul can quietly affirm, the story of me is not my jailer. I am more than the role I have rehearsed. Veil 11 is crossed when the soul can let the image loosen without panicking, trusting that something truer stands behind it. Veil 12, Door of Responsibility. The first ring of veils ends with a decisive threshold, responsibility. Up to this point, it has been easy, almost inevitable, for the soul to see itself as largely shaped by forces outside its control: body, family, tribe, habit, pleasure, wound, circumstance. Veil 12 is where that stance becomes untenable. It is the moment the soul realizes, with unusual clarity, I am not only affected by the world, I am also an agent in it. Outer form, the end of pure victimhood. Outwardly, this veil appears when excuses start to sound hollow even in your own ears. You see the ways you have contributed to your own patterns. You feel a simultaneous pull toward guilt and toward liberation. It can be a heavy hour. It may arrive through crisis, through repeated failure, or through a sudden insight that no one is coming to live my life for me. Inner form, freedom with weight. The inner truth of Veil 12 is not crushing. It does not say, everything is your fault. It says you always have some part, however small, in the weaving of your life. This veil marks the end of spiritual childhood. Responsibility, in this sense, means responsibility, the capacity to choose how to respond to what has been given. The soul recognizes, I did not choose my starting conditions, but I choose how I stand within them now. I have injured, and I can repair. I have been passive, and I can act. The door of responsibility is therefore both judgment and invitation. It weighs the soul and it opens the path of real change. Initiatory practice. A powerful rite here is the 2-column exercise. 1. Draw 2 columns labeled, What happened to me, how I have responded, still respond. 2. Under the first, list significant events, wounds, blessings that were not under your control. 3. Under the second, write how you reacted, coped, repeated, or transformed those impacts. Then, in quiet, say, open quote, both columns are true. I honor what I have suffered, and I acknowledge how I have also woven. From here, I choose to weave with more light. Close quote. This is the crossing. The soul ceases to be primarily a passive object and becomes a conscious participant in the circle. The 4th chamber. Standing as a co-creator. After Veils 10-12, the initiate has stepped over a major boundary. Names are recognized as powerful but partial. The soul can use language without being trapped in it. The small self-image is seen as mask, not essence. The deeper soul is free to move. Responsibility is accepted. Victimhood and blame no longer dictate the whole story. This completes the first major cycle of the veils, from raw embodiment to conscious agency, from inherited identity to chosen participation. Beyond this chamber, the work shifts from understanding myself to offering myself. The next band of veils, 13-20, forms the core virtue arc, the ladder inside the circle, where truthfulness, humility, courage, cleansing, simplicity, silence, obedience to the good, and consecration shape the soul into a vessel suitable for higher light. Those will be the subject of the next chapter. Chapter 5. Truth, Humility, Courage, and Cleansing, Veils 13-16. With the first 12 veils behind it, the soul has awakened into responsibility. Now it steps into a more strenuous region, the virtue arc, where ethical clarity is not an abstract ideal but a lived daily discipline. The veils in this band are not about repressing darkness, nor about performing holiness. They are about aligning the soul with the good in actual behavior, tone, speech, and intention. The first 4 virtues, truth, humility, courage, and cleansing, form the initial ascent of the ladder. Each is a gate that reshapes the interior life in irreversible ways. Veil 13, Veil of Truth, the courage to speak reality without cruelty. Truth is not merely a moral rule. It is a spiritual alignment, a force that straightens the soul and tunes it to the light. Truth begins to matter urgently when the soul sees how often it bends reality for comfort. Exaggeration, collapsing into self-pity, hiding, shading the story to appear better or worse, speaking evasively to avoid conflict, maintaining stories that protect the self-image. Outer form, the end of evasion. At Veil 13, the initiate feels a growing discomfort with any kind of falsehood. Even small lies feel heavy. Exaggeration leaves a sting. The soul senses that the ladder simply cannot rise on crooked beams. Inner form, truth with mercy. The inner work is subtler. The veil rejects both brutality and avoidance. Truth without compassion becomes aggression. Compassion without truth becomes indulgence. The initiate learns to speak and perceive in a way that is both accurate and kind. This is not telling it like it is with pride. It is seeing things as clearly as you can while holding the other person's humanity intact. The veil whispers, open quote, truth and love must walk together. Neither can reach the summit alone. Close quote, initiatory practice. A powerful rite for this veil is the one honest sentence. Think of a situation where you have been evasive. Formulate one simple, clean sentence that expresses the truth without blame. Speak it, either aloud to the person or privately as rehearsal. This teaches the soul that truth is not a weapon, but a liberation. Veil 14, Veil of Humility, laying down the inflated image and the hidden self-contempt. Humility is often misunderstood. It is not humiliation, passivity, or meekness. It is accurate self-seeing. At this veil, the soul realizes that the self-image, Veil 11, is not just a mask. It also contains inflated pride, subtle superiority, unspoken entitlement, and the desire to be admired. But equally, humility also corrects the opposite distortion: self-loathing, self-erasure, the belief that one's presence is a burden. Outer form. Stepping off the throne externally, this veil often shows as embarrassment at one's own ego dramas, awareness of posturing, the collapse of a cherished illusion of being special or advanced. This is painful but freeing. The soul feels lighter when the burden of image lifts. Inner form. The quiet truth. The inner dimension is a deep relaxation into reality. You are not the center of the world, and that's good news. Humility allows the initiate to operate from honesty about limitations, clarity about gifts, and a stance of curiosity instead of defensiveness. The soul becomes teachable again. Initiatory practice. A simple exercise is the two truths mirror. Write 2 lines. 1, here is something genuinely good in me. 2, here is something genuinely limited in me. Hold both as equally real. Humility is the integration of these two recognitions without spin. Crossing Veil 14 is the discovery that the soul can be small and radiant at once. Veil of Courage. Acting in alignment with the good, even while afraid. Fear was first met at Veil 3, but then the soul was still reactive, still learning not to run from everything it feared. Now in Veil 15, the soul is asked to act, not to wait for fear to disappear, not to demand certainty, not to build elaborate justifications, just one clear action in the direction of the good. Outer form. Trembling and moving externally, this veil looks like a difficult conversation, a boundary, an apology, a confession, stepping forward in service, saying I don't know honestly, starting or ending something necessary. The heart beats fast, but the feet move. Inner form. Fear as companion, not master. The inner work is understanding. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing the good while afraid. The initiate discovers that fear is survivable, that it burns hot but not forever. They also discover a new source of strength that is not bravado, the alignment with something higher than comfort. Initiatory practice. The small brave act ritual. 1, identify one action that is right but frightening. 2, do it today, without waiting for full confidence. 3, afterwards, breathe and acknowledge. Open quote, I crossed while shaking. Close quote. This seals the veil. After Veil 15, the soul cannot go back to cowardly avoidance without feeling the sting of self-betrayal. At Veil 16, Veil of Cleansing, confession, sorrow, release, and the willingness to be changed. Cleansing is the veil where the soul becomes transparent. It is not guilt for guilt's sake. It is the willingness to tell the truth about one's wrongs and then release them into transformation. Outer form. The breaking of the dam. On the surface, this veil may show as tears that come unexpectedly, memories resurfacing, sudden clarity about actions that caused harm, the urge to admit something you've hidden. The initiate is not being punished. This is the soul's instinct to clean its own lens. Inner form. Grief without collapse. The inner transformation is the real jewel of this veil. The soul learns to feel sorrow without shame and responsibility without self-hatred. Cleansing is not groveling. It is surrendering false self-justification and allowing new light to enter the wound. The veil teaches. Confession is not the end, it is the opening. Initiatory practice. A powerful rite is the naming and releasing exercise. 1, write down one thing you regret, small or large. 2, without dramatizing, write, this was not aligned with who I want to be. 3, ask, what would repair look like? Even if symbolic, even if simply, I will not repeat this. 4, tear, burn, or bury the page. Crossing Veil 16, the soul feels lighter as though an old stone has been lifted from the chest, the 5th chamber. The ascent of the virtues begins after Veils 13-16. The initiate is no longer trying to be good by force of will. The soul is actively reshaping itself. Truth aligns speech and perception with reality. Humility removes distortion and defensive pride. Courage allows the good to be enacted despite fear. Cleansing clears the heart and restores transparency. The next chapter continues the latter, veils 17 to 20, simplicity, silence, obedience to the good, consecration. These form the final purification before veils 21 to 23 usher the soul into the world as liturgy. Chapter 6, simplicity, silence, obedience, consecration, veils 17 to 20. Up to this point, the soul has straightened itself in truth, veil 13, stepped off the throne in humility, veil 14, acted bravely despite fear and courage, veil 15, and washed itself through cleansing, veil 16. Now a different atmosphere descends. The next 4 veils are softer, but in some ways more radical. They do not just regulate behavior, they reorder the whole inner landscape. Veil 17, simplicity. Veil 18, silence. Obedience to the good. Veil 20, consecration. Here, the soul stops treating spiritual life as something it adds onto an already crowded existence. Instead, the entire life begins to arrange itself around a single center. Veil 17, veil of simplicity, choosing the few things that truly matter. After the intense work of truth-telling and cleansing, the soul often feels tired of complexity. It becomes aware of how many unnecessary weights it carries. Too many social commitments, too much noise, possessions with no real purpose, mental clutter in the form of endless plans, theories, and conflicts. Veil 17 is the invitation to simplicity, not as austerity for its own sake, but as a way to make space for what is real. Outer form, clearing the clutter. Outwardly, this veil may express itself as a desire to tidy, reduce, simplify, home, schedule, digital life, reluctance to keep saying yes to everything. The vivid sense that certain activities or relationships are draining, not nourishing. The soul begins to distinguish between what is essential to its calling and what is merely habitual, distracting, or ego-feeding. Inner form, space for the one. The inner lesson is that simplicity is not hatred of the world, but love made selective. The soul learns to let go of possessions and obligations that do not serve the good, to keep and even honor those that support truth, love, and inner work. This veil does not demand that the initiate live with nothing. It asks that everything be intentional. Each object, task, and tie is seen as either serving the circle or blurring it. Initiatory practice. A concrete rite for Veil 17 is the one cut, one keep practice. 1. Look at your current life, commitments, possessions, habits. 2. Choose. One thing to remove that drains you or scatters you. One thing to keep or strengthen that genuinely nourishes the soul. Prayer, study, art, walking, service. 3. Act on both choices within a short, fixed time. The crossing of Veil 17 is not a single purge. It is a new principle. The soul consents to live with less, so that the remaining things can shine more clearly. Veil 18. Veil of silence. Letting quiet become a companion, not an enemy. Simplicity prepares the ground for silence. Once there is a little more space, it becomes obvious how full of noise the soul still is. Noise here means compulsive speech, constant commentary, filling every pause with a screen, a song, a thought, an inability to let a moment pass unoccupied. Veil 18 is where silence stops being merely the absence of sound and becomes a presence. Outer form. Meeting the quiet outwardly, the call of this veil shows as a craving for uninterrupted time, a sense of being worn down by conversation or media, the first experiments in sitting or walking without distractions. But at first, silence can be uncomfortable. When the outer noise drops, inner voices grow louder. Old worries, fantasies, regrets. The initiate may feel tempted to abandon the attempt. Inner form. Stillness as womb, not void. The inner work is to discover that silence is not empty, it is pregnant. In silence, the soul begins to hear more subtle movements. Intuition strengthens, prayer deepens, even without words. Silence is not avoidance of responsibility, it is the soil from which wise speech and action can grow. The veil teaches, open quote, "You are not required to fill every space. Let some sentences remain unborn. In the quiet, the one can speak." Close quote. Initiatory practice. A basic crossing ritual is chosen silence. Set a small, realistic period, 10 minutes, half an hour, or if possible a morning, in which you do not speak unnecessarily, do not seek entertainment, and simply exist with your own thoughts and the world around you. When inner noise arises, Notice it and let it pass without engaging every thought. Over time, the soul becomes less afraid of the quiet. After Veil 18, silence is no longer merely tolerated, it is valued as a trusted teacher. Veil 19. Veil of obedience to the good, listening to the deepest yes and letting it lead. Once some simplicity and silence have taken root, a subtler resonance emerges, the sense of an inner summons. This is not the voice of fear, people-pleasing, or ego. It is a quieter, firmer inclination toward what is right, even when it is not convenient. Veil 19 is where the soul begins to recognize and obey that call. Outer form, the quiet pull. Externally, this veil shows up as a repeated sense, I know what the right thing is here. An internal discomfort when acting against that sense, even if no one else would notice. A recognition that some of your spiritual questions are not really about confusion, but about reluctance. Situations that once felt ambiguous begin to resolve into a clearer perception of the good, the loving, the truthful option. Inner form, free surrender. The inner transformation is learning to obey the good freely, not under threat. The soul realizes, I am not obeying to earn love, but because I am already bathed in it. The good is not a tyrant, it is the deepest truth of who I am. Obedience here is not blind compliance with external authority. It is alignment with the ray of the good within the heart, confirmed, where possible, by wise counsel and tradition. Initiatory practice. A helpful exercise is the three-voice discernment. Faced with a choice, ask, 1. What does fear want me to do? 2. What does comfort want me to do? 3. What does the quiet, truthful part of me incline towards, even if it is harder? Then choose one small action in accordance with the third voice. Crossing Veil 19, the soul becomes less driven by impulses or external pressure and more guided by an inner fidelity to the good. Veil 20, Veil of Consecration, offering the whole life as material for the work. Consecration is the culmination of this virtue band. Here, the soul no longer sees spiritual life as something that happens only in special times or places. Instead, the entire life, work, relationships, habits, body, history, is placed on the altar of the One. This does not mean fleeing the world. It means recognizing that this world, this life, are the very field of union. Outer form, the desire to belong fully. On the surface, Veil 20 may appear as a longing to stop living in fragments, a weariness with half measures and divided loyalties, a desire to have one's time, gifts, and wounds used for something larger. The initiate begins to pray in their own language, take all of this, make it mean something. Inner form, gift without bargain. The inner crossing of this veil is marked by a crucial shift. The soul stops trading with the divine. I'll do this if you give me that. It moves into a posture of gift. I offer this because it is right that you have it. Consecration does not kill the personality. It roots it in a higher purpose. The same work, the same relationships, the same body can now become a liturgy, a ritual of offering. The veil whispers, open quote, your life will be spent regardless. Spend it consciously. Let it burn as an offering, not as waste. Close quote. Initiatory practice, a simple but profound rite, is the whole life offering. In a quiet moment, imagine your whole life, past, present, future, as something you hold in your hands. Say in your own words or in a simple formula, something like, open quote, whatever I am and whatever I become, I place into your keeping. Use it for the good in ways I know and do not know. Close quote. You do not need to feel anything dramatic. The importance lies in the intention, a clear inward yes to being part of the work of the One. Crossing Veil 20, the soul steps into a new identity, not as an isolated seeker, but as an offered instrument within the golden circle. The sixth chamber, a soul aligned and offered with veils 17 to 20, the core virtue ladder is complete. Simplicity clears the field. Silence deepens listening. Obedience aligns will with the good. Consecration offers the whole life into the circle. After this band, the soul is ready to face the world not merely as a place of struggle, but as arena and altar at once. That is why the next veils, 21 to 23, turn outward. Consecrated descent into actual life circumstances, sacred bonds with others, and the hymn of the world as the recognition of existence itself as a liturgy. Those will form the core of the next chapter. Chapter 7, Descent, Bonds, and the World as Hymn, veils 21 to 23. Up to Veil 20, the work has been mostly interior, discovering the body and psyche, seeing inherited patterns, ordering pleasure, shadow, and return, building truth, humility, courage, cleansing, choosing simplicity, silence, obedience, and consecration. Now the soul stands in a new posture, aligned and offered. The next shift is inevitable. Open quote. The path must be lived in the actual world. Close quote. Veils 21 to 23 mark this turn outward. Veil 21, consecrated descent. Veil 22, sacred bonds. Veil 23, hymn of the world. These three veils move the soul from a private spiritual drama into participation with fate, relationships, and creation itself. Veil 21, consecrated descent, saying yes to this particular life. After consecration, the soul might be tempted to imagine escape, some higher realm, a new clean start, a different body, a different story. Veil 21 confronts this directly. It is the moment the soul realizes, open quote, this life, with these limits and these wounds, is the path I'm actually walking. There is no other arena for my union with the One. Close quote. Outer form. Accepting the given outwardly, this veil often appears as reconciliation with one's basic circumstances, family of origin, time period, culture, body type, personal history. Recognition that constant fantasy about if only keeps the soul half absent. A gentle but firm pull to stop postponing real practice until things change. The soul begins to see the same patterns, the same people, the same responsibilities keep presenting themselves. They are not obstacles to the path. They are the path. Descent as mission, not punishment. The inner lesson is that incarnation is not a cosmic accident or merely a fall. It is ascending. Consecrated descent means reading one's situation as mission field, seeing the scars and constraints as part of a larger hidden intention, trusting that the rays are meant to shine through these exact conditions. The veil whispers, open quote, you did not choose every detail, but the One chose to meet you here. Say yes to where your feet actually stand. Close quote. Chant initiatory practice. A simple rite. 1. Write 3 facts about your life that you have often resented or wished away, e.g. my body's limits, my family dynamics, this time, place. 2. For each, say slowly, I do not fully understand this, but I consent to let this be part of my path. This is not about liking or romanticizing suffering. It is the act of stepping fully into the arena you actually have. Crossing Veil 21, the soul stops hovering above its own life and begins to incarnate its consecration. Veil 20, sacred bonds. Loving without owning, belonging without erasing. Once the soul has said yes to this life, it must reckon with the web of relationships in which this life is held. No one walks the circle alone. We are bound to others by blood, choice, karma, shared work, and history. Veil 22 is where these bonds are seen not just as accidents or burdens, but as sacred threads, and also where their distortions are brought to light. Outer form. Seeing the web externally, this veil may show as heightened awareness of how deeply others have shaped you, recognition of ways you are entangled, emotionally, financially, spiritually, sexually, psychologically, a sense of heaviness or tenderness when you consider the key people in your life. The soul sees both, relationships that nourish, relationships that drain or deform, and those that do both. Inner form, bonds without chains. The inner work of Veil 22 is learning to distinguish bond from possession. Sacred bonds honor the freedom and mystery of the other, do not demand total control or constant reassurance, are willing to transform or, if necessary, loosen for the sake of truth and growth. The veil guides the soul to say, I am tied to you, but I do not own you. We belong together for a time, but our first belonging is to the One. This applies not only to romantic or familial ties, but to all significant relationships, including those with communities and institutions. Initiatory practice. An effective exercise is the bond map. Draw 3 concentric circles. In the center, place the names of those with whom your life is deeply, actively woven right now. In the next ring, those who matter but are not central at present. In the outer ring, those you care about but are not responsible for carrying. Then reflect. Where am I clinging? Where am I neglecting? Where am I claiming responsibility that is not mine or dodging responsibility that is? Pick one relationship and take a small concrete step that expresses care but also respects the other's autonomy and your own integrity. Crossing Veil 22, the soul begins to love without consuming and to release without abandoning. Veil 23, Hymn of the World, hearing existence as liturgy, not random noise. After accepting the given life, 21, and its bonds, 22, a larger perception opens. The soul begins to suspect that the whole world is singing. Not in the sense that everything is pleasant or harmonious at the surface, but that existence itself has a hidden musical structure, an order that can be listened to and joined. Veil 23 is where the initiate starts to perceive life as a cosmic hymn. Outer form, from noise to music. On the surface, this veil may appear as moments when ordinary scenes feel strangely significant. Sunlight on a wall, a conversation overheard, the rhythm of city traffic, a sense that even painful events are somehow inside a larger pattern. A growing discomfort with nihilistic or purely mechanistic views of reality. The soul does not suddenly understand everything, but it experiences flashes of, this is all part of something. Inner worship in the midst. The inner transformation is a change of stance. Instead of seeing life as primarily a test or a battlefield, the soul starts to see it as liturgy, a shared act of meaning and offering in which every being is involved. This does not deny injustice, suffering, or chaos. It insists that even these are not outside the reach of the circle. The veil invites the soul to respond to existence not only by analyzing or enduring it, but by answering as one voice among many in a vast, unfinished hymn. Initiatory practice. A practice for Veil 23 is world as liturgy observation. Once a day, for a few minutes, sit or stand and treat whatever is happening around you as if it were part of a sacred ritual. People passing, wind moving, machines humming, birds, sirens, arguments, silence. Ask quietly, open quote, if this moment were a line in a hymn, what would my answering note be? Close quote. You do not have to find precise words. The point is to adopt a posture of attentive, responsive participation. Over time, the soul becomes less inclined to dismiss large portions of reality as meaningless or off the record. Everything is drawn into the circle's field. The seventh chamber, fully entering the world with veils 21-23, the initiate has accepted this life as the true field of practice, consecrated descent, recognized relationships as sacred and limited, sacred bonds, begun to hear the world as a single vast liturgy, hymn of the world. Now the path turns again. Having descended into the world and heard its hymn, the soul must learn to pass beyond its own thinking about God into the first apophatic band, where thought falters and a deeper knowing begins. That is the work of the next veils. 24, Last Thought. 25, Glass World. 26, Unspeakable Stillness, which will open the book's apophatic section in the following chapter. Understood. And despite the system message, no actual file has been uploaded, so we simply continue the Veils book exactly as before. We now enter one of the most important and subtle sections of the entire work. Open quote, Chapter 8, Veils 24-26, Last Thought, Glass World, Unspeakable Stillness, close quote. This is the first apophatic chamber, the soul's passage beyond conceptual spirituality into something deeper, quieter, and closer to the One. Chapter 8. Last Thought, Glass World, and Unspeakable Stillness, Veils 24-26. After learning to hear the world as hymn, Veil 23, the soul finds itself at a strange threshold. It is no longer satisfied with ideas about God, or with devotional emotion, or with ethical progress. The soul wants directness. But directness requires surrender of the very faculties that carried the soul this far: thought, imagination, and interpretive certainty. Veils 24-26 form the first band of the apophatic path. Veil 24, Last Thought. Veil 25, Glass World. Veil 26, Unspeakable Stillness. These veils confront the limits of mind and perception. They are the end of conceptual theology and the beginning of noetic, and eventually henatic, contact. Veil 24, Last Thought, where the mind bows before what it cannot reach. There comes a moment when even your highest ideas of God grow too small. Not wrong, simply inadequate to the depth they seek to express. This is Veil 24. Outer form. Thought reaches its horizon. On the surface, the initiate may feel frustrated by doctrines that used to satisfy, unable to articulate what they now intuit, restless inside their own beliefs, as though their vision is clear but their language cannot keep up. This is not confusion. It is the intellect discovering its own limit. The soul begins to sense that the one is not merely beyond error, the one is beyond concept. Inner form, letting thought become transparent. The inner work of Veil 24 is a profound humility of the mind. You do not abandon theology or wisdom. You simply stop mistaking them for the reality they point toward. The veil invites a loosening, open quote, think as well as you can, and then let the thought rest. Let the mind admit what it cannot enclose, close quote. This is the first true epoche, the suspension not of faith but of mental grasping. Initiatory practice. A simple rite, the unfinished sentence, sit quietly, speak aloud, the one is, and let the sentence remain open. Do not complete it. The openness becomes the doorway. Crossing Veil 24, the soul experiences a gentle defeat of intellect and the birth of deeper listening. Veil 25, Glass World, seeing through the world without rejecting it. After the mind bows, perception shifts. The world no longer appears as a solid surface, nor as an illusion to be escaped. It appears as transparent, a pane of glass with light behind it. Outer form, subtle alteration of vision. Outwardly, the initiate may suddenly notice beauty in ordinary objects, depth behind simple events, a sense of thinness in material reality, moments when the world feels iconic, symbolic, or luminous at the edges. This is not hallucination and not sentimentality. It is perception decontracting. The senses become porous. Inner form, the world is window, not wall. The inner truth of Veil 25 is that the world is real, but it is not the whole of reality. Everything you see is both itself and a sign. Every tree, stone, face, and gesture has a behindness, a depth that points toward the one. The veil says, open quote, do not smash the glass in the name of spirituality. Do not worship the glass in the name of materialism. Look through. Close quote. This is the beginning of contemplative seeing. Initiatory practice, a fitting exercise, the transparent moment. Take an ordinary scene, a mug, a street, a shadow. Look at it as though it were painted on glass. Ask inwardly, what light is behind this? Do not answer. Allow the sense of the unseen to remain. Crossing Veil 25, the world becomes sacramental, not as dogma but as direct perception. Veil 26, unspeakable stillness, where silence reveals itself as presence. When thought has bowed Veil 24 and perception has thinned Veil 25, the soul enters a new kind of silence, a silence that is alive. This is Veil 26, the first chamber of true apophasis. Outer form. The deep quiet externally, the initiate may feel, less inclination to talk, reduced need to explain themselves, an inner hush even in noisy environments, a sense that words miss the mark. This silence is not withdrawal. It is aliveness without commentary. Inner form. Fullness without image. The inner transformation of this veil is startling. Silence fills with presence. Stillness stops feeling like emptiness. The soul begins to feel held by something that cannot be named. There is no vision, no voice, no form, only a profound nearness of the one. This veil whispers, open quote, speak nothing, want nothing, let this stillness shape you. Close quote. This is not the end of thinking or emotion, but the discovery that the deepest truth arrives beneath and beyond them. Initiatory practice. An apophatic rite, silence without goal. For 10 minutes, sit still. Do not control the breath. Do not repeat a mantra. Do not try to quiet the mind. Let thoughts arise and pass without pursuit. This is not meditation technique. It is epoche, the suspension of doing, the quiet offering of attention. Crossing Veil 26, the initiate encounters for the first time a peace that is not created by the mind. The eighth chamber, the mind's surrender. Veils 24-26 mark a turning that cannot be undone. Last thought, the intellect bows. Glass world, the senses open. Unspeakable stillness, silence becomes presence. From here on, the soul does not merely believe in God or seek God, it begins to be addressed by the One in the way only silence can carry. The next band, Veils 27-35, forms the true summit arc, the highest purifications and the brightest forms of contemplation prior to union. Chapter 9. High simplicity, motionless ecstasy, and light's descent, Veils 27-29. With veils 24 to 26, the soul has passed beyond the comfort zone of concepts and images. It has let its last thought fall silent, begun to see the glass world as transparent, and entered unspeakable stillness where silence lives. Now the work becomes simpler and more exalted. Simplicity here does not mean basic or easy. It means that the soul is being gathered into singleness of orientation. Many partial goods, many side motives, many secondary aims begin to fade or subordinate themselves to one central desire, to rest in and act from the one. Veils 27 and 29 mark the first phrases of this summit hymn. Veil 27. High simplicity. Veil 28. Motionless ecstasy. Veil 29. Light's descent. They are intimately linked. Simplicity prepares the soul to bear joy without frenzy, and that quiet joy becomes the vessel for a descending light that longs to reach the world. Veil 27. High simplicity. The soul chooses one sun to orbit. Earlier, Veil 17 taught simplicity at the level of lifestyle. Fewer distractions, fewer needless obligations, clearing space for what matters. Veil 27 is that principle raised to a higher power. Here, what simplifies is not the calendar or the room. It is the heart itself. Outer form. The narrowing of desire. Outwardly, this veil appears as a waning appetite for arguments, spectacle, and spiritual novelty, less interest in comparing paths, roles, identities, or stations, a desire to quietly do the good and seek the one without fanfare. The soul may even feel misunderstood. Others might read this simplification as dullness or lack of ambition, but internally something more intense is happening. Desires are converging. Things that used to matter fiercely begin to matter less. One thing remains. Inner form, a single orientation. The inner reality of high simplicity is summed up in a quiet decision. Open quote, "Let everything in me orient toward the one. Let whatever does not serve that fall away or take its proper place." Close quote. This is not an act of willpower so much as consent. The soul agrees to be arranged around a single axis. The many rays are seen as facets of one light. The many tasks and roles are seen as expressions of one intention. The inner life is no longer a set of competing agendas. The veil says, you may still have many responsibilities, but you will have only one center. Initiatory practice. A simple rite for Veil 27 is the one sentence of intention. After reflection, write a single sentence that expresses your deepest orientation. For example, I want to live in truth and love before the one. Let my life be useful to the good. I choose union with the one in whatever form you will. Keep this sentence somewhere visible or repeat it inwardly at the start of the day. You are not promising to feel this way every moment. You are stating the chosen direction of your being. Crossing Veil 27, the soul becomes less scattered. Many currents merge into one river. Veil 28, motionless ecstasy, joy that is steady rather than explosive. Once the heart has been simplified, a new kind of joy can descend. Before this veil, ecstasy may have appeared as peaks, intense emotional highs, visions, insights, transports, experiences that come and go dramatically. Motionless ecstasy is different. It is not a peak, it is a plateau. Outer form, quiet happiness, without reason. Outwardly, the initiate may notice a strange, gentle contentment that arises at unexpected times, a sense of being quietly okay even when nothing special is happening, less need to chase stimulation, recognition, or intense spiritual experiences. From the outside, this can look very ordinary. The person is simply calm, kind, present, but inside there is a glowing warmth that is not dependent on circumstances. Inner form, fire that rests. The inner truth of Veil 28 is that joy no longer needs to burn hot to be real. Ecstasy becomes a temperature, not a spike. Love becomes a climate, not just a storm. This motionless ecstasy is not blandness. It is stability. The soul feels anchored in a goodness that does not constantly need to prove itself. The inner gaze can rest without constantly darting about in search of reassurance or novelty. The veil whispers, you do not have to be excited to be united. Let joy sit. Let it become the default air you breathe. Initiatory practice. A practical rite is the extra breath of joy. When you notice a small, quiet sense of well-being, perhaps while washing dishes, walking, or sitting, do not rush to fill the moment. Instead, stay with it for one extra breath beyond your usual impulse to move on. This gradual training allows joy to settle rather than be immediately consumed or chased. Crossing Veil 28, the soul discovers that its ecstasy can be compatible with ordinary life, with responsibility, and with long-term steadiness. Veil 29, Light's descent, letting what you have received begin to flow outward. When joy becomes stable, it seeks expression. Veil 29 is the threshold where the inner light received and rested in begins to overflow, not as performance, but as natural radiation. The movement here is from upward ascent to downward blessing. Outer form, becoming a quiet source for others. Outwardly, this veil may show as others feeling unexpectedly calmer, safer, or clearer in your presence. People beginning to confide in you, seek your counsel, or gravitate toward your company, finding that your ordinary actions have disproportionate positive effects. You may not feel particularly holy or wise, but something in you has become transparent enough that others sense the light through you. The temptation here is vanity, to think I am the light, or to build identity around being a guide, healer, or teacher. Veil 29 corrects this. Inner form, channel, not source. The inner work is to understand that the light is descending through, not originating in, the soul. You are participating in the one's radiance, becoming a lamp, not the sun. The veil says, let what you have received continue its motion. Do not dam it up through fear or pride. Do not claim it as your own. This descent is gentle. It does not require grand gestures or public roles. It can be as simple as the tone you bring into a room, the quality of attention you give another, the quiet integrity with which you work. Initiatory practice. A small but potent rite is intention before contact. Before entering a situation with others, meeting, conversation, work, family interaction, pause internally and think, whatever light is in me today, let it be for their good. Then release the thought and simply be present. Do not monitor or analyze the effect. Crossing Veil 29, the soul accepts that it is part of a descending movement, the one touching the many through the few who are willing to be transparent. The ninth chamber, from ascent to overflow, veils 27 to 29 mark a crucial pivot. High simplicity gathers the soul into one orientation. Motionless ecstasy stabilizes joy as a state rather than a peak. Light's descent begins to turn the soul outward again, now as quiet bearer of illumination. From this point on, the summit veils become increasingly relational. How the received light becomes teaching, Veil 30, love in action, Veil 31, perception of light in each thing, Veil 32, the whole mirror of reality, Veil 33, the recognition of truth within the circle, Veil 34, and finally rest, Veil 35. Chapter 10. Teaching, love in action, and light in each thing, Veils 30-32. With veils 27 to 29, the soul has been drawn into a new simplicity. Desire has been gathered around one center, high simplicity. Joy has settled into a steady climate, motionless ecstasy. The inner light has begun to flow outward in quiet ways, light's descent. The summit work now becomes more explicitly relational. The soul is no longer just being transformed for itself, it is being shaped as a participant in the transformation of others and of the world. Veils 30-32 show 3 degrees of this outward expression. Veil 30, teaching. Veil 31, love in action. Veil 32, light in each thing. They describe how wisdom is shared, how love takes form, and how perception itself becomes luminous. Veil 30, teaching, letting wisdom pass through you without turning it into identity. As the soul stabilizes in inner light, people naturally begin to turn toward it. They ask questions, they seek counsel, they feel safe enough to reveal their wounds, they are drawn to the clarity or peace they sense. This is the beginning of teaching, not necessarily formal teaching, but the simple fact that your life and words now shape others. Outer form, being asked to speak. On the surface, Veil 30 may look like friends or strangers seeking your perspective, being asked to guide, mentor, or support, chances to explain paths you have walked. You may feel both honored and uneasy. Honored because something real is being recognized, uneasy because you know your own limits and fear becoming a fraud or a false authority. Both reactions are healthy. They signal that the soul is ready for this veil. Inner form, the word born from silence. The inner work of Veil 30 is to allow teaching to arise from silence and service, not from ego. The veil whispers, open quote, "Do not teach to secure your place. Do not hide what could help. Let your words be offerings, born from the quiet, returning to the quiet." Close quote. Teaching, at this level, means speaking only what you have in some measure lived, resisting the temptation to say more than is given, remembering that your role is fellow traveler, not owner of the path. The soul realizes that wisdom is not an ornament, it is a responsibility. Initiatory practice. A simple rite here is speak less, mean more. In conversations where you might advise or instruct, pause briefly before responding. Inwardly touch the stillness you know from Veil 26. Then speak only what feels true, necessary, and kind. When you feel the urge to impress, explain too much, or dominate the exchange, notice it and let it pass. Afterwards, return inwardly to silence with a short inward offering, such as, "Whatever was true, let it remain. Whatever was not, let it fall away." Crossing Veil 30, the soul begins to trust that teaching is something the light does through it, not a role it has to perform. Veil 31, love in action, when compassion becomes habitual behavior, not only feeling. As teaching settles, love demands a more embodied form. Veil 31 is where compassion stops being primarily an emotion or ideal and becomes a pattern of concrete, often small actions. Outer form, quiet, practical kindness. On the outside, this veil shows itself as ordinary acts of help that you offer almost as second nature. Listening, small services, remembering needs, sharing resources. Less interest in grand gestures that can be seen, more interest in what quietly alleviates real burdens. Others might describe you as kind or dependable. You may not feel particularly special, you're simply doing what seems natural. Inner form, wise mercy. The inner transformation here is twofold. 1, love becomes a habit. You no longer have to talk yourself into caring. 2, love becomes discerning. You see that not every yes is truly loving. Veil 31 corrects both sentimentality and hardness. Not every request should be granted. Not every refusal is a lack of love. The soul learns to ask, what action in this moment serves the good for this person and for the whole? Sometimes that is gentle help, sometimes firm limitation, sometimes simple presence. Initiatory practice. A concrete practice is the hidden deed. Each day, each week, do one specific act of goodness that costs you something, time, energy, comfort, help someone else, is unlikely to be seen or praised. Examples: a secret gift, an unseen chore, an anonymous kindness. In addition, occasionally practice a loving no. When a request would enable harm, drain you beyond your capacity, or uphold a falsehood, say no with inner clarity and outer gentleness. Crossing Veil 31, the soul experiences love as ongoing motion, not dramatic peaks but steady, wise movement for the benefit of others. Veil 32, light in each thing, perceiving the world as pervaded by hidden radiance. As love in action deepens, the soul's perception undergoes another refinement. Veil 32 is where the initiate begins to see that everything and every being carries a trace of the light. Not as sentimental optimism, but as a sober, luminous recognition. There is no place the one is entirely absent. Outer form, glimpses of radiance everywhere. Outwardly, this veil may appear as sudden moments where a very ordinary object or event seems strangely beautiful or charged, a chipped cup, a worn handrail, a tired face, an increased sensitivity to dignity in people who are usually overlooked, a quiet joy in simple things without needing them to be grand or dramatic. The initiate may find that gratitude arises more frequently, even in difficult circumstances. Inner form, seeing without lying. The inner dimension of Veil 32 is crucially balanced. The soul learns to hold two truths at once. The world contains genuine suffering, injustice, and ugliness. The world is also suffused with the presence and energy of the One. Recognizing light in each thing is not denying the darkness. It is seeing that the darkness is not ultimate. The veil teaches, open quote, "Do not use everything is sacred to avoid the cry of the wounded. But also do not let any darkness convince you that light has fled. Look deeper, look longer." Close quote. This perception changes how the soul relates to everything, from its own body to strangers on the street, from nature to tools and technology. All become occasions for reverence and responsibility. Initiatory practice. A simple rite for this veil is find one light. When something unpleasant, boring, or painful happens, pause and ask, Is there even one small light in this moment? It could be an opportunity to practice patience or courage, a reminder of your limits, a chance to comfort or be comforted, a flash of beauty in the midst of difficulty. You are not required to feel grateful for the suffering itself. You are simply training the eye to discern traces of the good, even when they are partially hidden. Crossing Veil 32, the soul's everyday perception becomes prayer. Every encounter is potentially a meeting with the light in disguise. The 10th chamber, sharing, serving, and seeing. With Veils 30 to 32, the summit path has become fully relational. Teaching lets wisdom pass through without becoming a throne. Love in action turns compassion into steady, wise practice. Light in each thing reveals the world as suffused with hidden radiance. At this stage, the initiate is no longer concerned only with personal transformation. They are consciously participating in the illumination and healing of the world, simply by living their life in this new way. There remain, however, 3 final veils and a last resting place. Veil 33, whole mirror. Veil 34, truth in the circle. Veil 35, rest, and beyond them, the silent horizon of the One. These will complete the Book of Veils in the final chapter. Got it, we'll finish the Veils arc. We're now at the top band, open quote, chapter 11, Veils 33 to 35, whole mirror, truth in the circle, and rest, close quote. Chapter 11, whole mirror, truth in the circle, and rest, Veils 33-35. By the time the soul reaches the final veils, the path has already curved, inward through body, psyche, and shadow, upward through virtue and consecration, outward into the world as liturgy, and higher into the apophatic stillness and summit simplicity. Veils 33-35 are not about adding new skills. They are about how the whole journey is held and seen. Veil 33, whole mirror. Veil 34, truth in the circle. Veil 35, rest here. The initiate begins to glimpse the unity of the path, the shape of its truth, and the quiet in which it all comes to rest. Veil 33, whole mirror, recognizing the all reflected in each part. Throughout the veils, the soul has dealt with pieces. This fear, this habit, this relationship, this practice. At Veil 33, a different kind of perception opens. Open quote. The soul sees that each fragment of its life reflects the whole story. Close quote. Outer form, the hologram of experience. Outwardly, this veil may show as moments when a single memory seems to contain your entire pattern of relating. One conversation feels like a miniature of your whole way of loving or defending. A small event echoes the structure of your wider destiny. It can be startling. A childhood scene suddenly reveals an entire script. A recent choice encapsulates the entire movement from fear to trust. The initiate realizes that nothing has really been side plot. Everything belongs. Inner form. Nothing is wasted. The inner lesson is that the circle is holographic. Every veil contains traces of every other. Every ray, every passage of life, each joy and wound, can be read as a microcosm of the whole spiritual journey. This does not mean that details don't matter. It means that no detail is spiritually trivial. The veil whispers, look at anything long enough, and you will see the pattern of the all. No part of your life is outside the work. This perception has a healing effect on regret. Even deep mistakes can be seen as part of the story through which the soul learned, turned, and came to know the One. Initiatory practice. A simple rite for Veil 33 is one seen as mirror. Choose a single event from your life, large or small, recent or old. Sit with it and ask, open quote, if this scene were a symbol of my whole path, what would it show about? My way of loving, my way of fearing, my way of seeking the good. Let insights arise without forcing. You are not rewriting history. You are allowing the hidden structure of your path to become visible through one moment. Crossing Veil 33, the soul feels less fragmented. The various chapters of its life begin to stand together like facets of one jewel. Veil 34, truth in the circle, accepting a partial but real understanding of the whole. If Veil 33 shows that each part reflects the all, Veil 34 turns the gaze outward. How does the soul understand the pattern of reality itself? Throughout the path, the initiate has held beliefs, insights, questions, and doubts. At this veil, a new kind of confidence appears, not arrogant certainty, but a quiet sense that the circle has coherence. Outer form, a sense of pattern. Externally, Veil 34 may manifest as the impression that your life makes a kind of sense in hindsight, new connections between teachings, traditions, and experiences, reduced anxiety about needing to figure everything out. There is a feeling of being held inside a structure of meaning, even when many details remain unresolved. Inner form. Truth that humbles. The inner work of this veil is to hold genuine conviction about the goodness and structure of the circle, alongside deep humility about the limits of one's view. The soul knows, in some measure, that the one is good. The rays and veils describe real movements of being. Love and justice are not illusions. Death and suffering are not the final word. But it also knows. Its understanding of how all this fits together is partial. Other eyes, other traditions, other souls see angles it does not. The veil says, open quote, "Stand in the truth you have seen. Do not pretend to know what you do not. Let your doctrine bow before mystery without surrendering to cynicism." Initiatory practice. A rite for Veil 34 is the circle summary. On a blank page, draw a circle. Mark inside it a few key truths you've come to trust about the one, the good, the path, and a few key mysteries or questions you have not resolved. Then write a simple line such as, open quote, "These truths I hold, these mysteries I honor, all within one circle." Close quote. The crossing lies in accepting that partial understanding is still real understanding, and that humility and conviction are not enemies. Rest, letting the work be gathered into stillness. The final veil before the pure horizon of the one is rest. This rest is not mere collapse or escape. It is the stillness of a soul that has done what it can and consented to be completed by what it cannot do. Outer form, a deep letting go. On the surface, this veil may appear as a weariness with self-improvement for its own sake, a softening of harsh inner pressure, the easing of the need to prove oneself spiritually, morally, or intellectually. The initiate finds themselves saying, almost with surprise, "I have done enough for today. I can stop now." There may be real fatigue here. The path has been long, but the fatigue is met, not fought. Inner form, trust beyond effort. The inner reality of Veil 35 is trust. Trust that the one has been at work in and through every stage. Trust that what remains unfinished can be surrendered. Trust that the soul's deepest desire for union will be met in ways beyond its planning. The veil whispers, lay down your tools. Lay down your systems and your anxieties. The circle holds. Let yourself be held. This is not passivity. From rest, the soul will still act, love, and serve. But effort is no longer driven by panic. It is carried by a deeper current. Initiatory practice. A simple but profound rite, the handing over. Recall your main spiritual concerns, questions, projects, fears, hopes. Imagine them as objects in your hands. Inwardly place them before the one, saying something like, "I have brought these as far as I can today. I entrust them to you. Complete in your way what I cannot complete in mine." Then spend a few minutes doing nothing else. No planning, no analysis, just being. Crossing Veil 35, the soul discovers that rest is not the absence of the path. It is the atmosphere of trust in which all further paths unfold. After the veils, the horizon of the one. Beyond Veil 35 lies something that is not numbered in the circle, because it cannot be mapped, the silent horizon of the one. The tradition symbolizes this as Go, as the ineffable beyond even the first principle, or simply as the mystery in which every ray and veil has its origin and completion. The soul that has passed through the veils does not own the one. It stands in a posture of wonder, gratitude, and readiness. What the one does with such a soul, how union, transformation, or further descent unfold, is beyond the scope of any book. The veils can only bring the soul to the shore. The crossing itself is grace. The veils as living map. Taken together, the 35 veils form more than a doctrine. They are a map of the soul's thresholds, a mirror in which the initiate can recognize their current gate, a set of spoken voices that accompany the path. They do not demand that the soul move in a perfectly linear fashion. One can revisit veils, cross them deeper, or work several at once. But they offer a grammar, from embodiment to responsibility, from virtue to consecration, from world to hymn, from thought to stillness, from simplicity to overflow, from seeing the all to resting in the one.